Hi, I'm Denise Smith, and I'm your host today, and we're speaking about community education in our community, and I'm so excited to be here today. I wanted to talk a little bit about something that's a little serious to our community today, and it is called homelessness. Homelessness in our community has become a national problem. It's not only for today in our local community, but it's reached all the way nationally. So I've traveled in different areas, and what I'm finding is homelessness is something that is going on with everyone. It's the economy. Some people just lost their jobs and could no longer pay their rent, and they're now living in tents in the community. Some people, their children maybe had passed away, or maybe their spouse had passed away, and they just couldn't get over the sadness, and they've decided to live on the streets. And I really don't know why, but I do know that right now we don't have enough housing in our communities. I know that we don't have enough people that want to help the homeless society. So today we're going to talk about homelessness. And I just want to introduce my guest, Miss Lora. I'm so glad you're here today. I'm so glad we're hosting together. So I just wanted to bring up with you and let you know that with the homelessness that we have right now, it is so devastating that I think today we're just going to try to come up with some ideas that maybe we can try to help it. You know, maybe might be ideas. The first idea I come up with, and then I'm going to turn it over to you because then maybe you'll think of something as well. But maybe we have enough people that own warehouses. Maybe we have people that live and have apartment buildings, and maybe one of the units is vacant. Maybe they could identify one of those units for just homelessness and maybe rent out all the other ones, because of course you have to pay your mortgage, but maybe people that own property, warehouses, apartment buildings, they could designate a space for homelessness.
That's an excellent idea.
You think that's a good idea?
Excellent idea. Also, what we want our audience to know is that there's a difference between being homeless and being houseless.
Oh, yes.
There are a number of people who are homeless because there are other things going on other than just being houseless. And sometimes there are mental health issues, there could be addiction issues, there could be family issues that have prevented them from being part of the family, and therefore they chose to be on the street or were forced to be on the street. It's a whole variety of reasons people are where they are. But we as a society need to be a little more sensitive to the issues that's going on as it relates to people who are homeless and houseless.
Yes.
Now, in one of our communities further north, we had 15 different fires popping up at one time.
Yes.
Burning up houses and in some cases everything anyone may have had is now gone. And people found themselves for the first time, some of them found themselves for the first time being houseless and homeless, living in shelters, living with other family members, living in someone else's home that they didn't know. And in some cases, people came together to support what was happening to other community members, but in other cases, people are still homeless and still finding themselves trying to find some place to live because they can no longer live where they were living before because it was completely burned down.
I can see that. You know, I drive through cities, being a real estate broker. I drive through the cities of different cities. I can go from 10 different cities in one day. And what I'm finding is that everywhere there's tents. Everywhere there's homelessness. I know that when I speak, have actually spoken to a whole block of people to find out why are they homeless. And there's a couple of them that say, I don't want to live in a house. I don't want to. I don't want a home. I want to live on the streets. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, yes, they are addicted. They could be, it could be alcoholism. And when you're living in a shelter, you cannot have any alcoholism or addictions. Mm-hmm. So they say they prefer to live on the streets with their addiction. Mm-hmm. They say their family doesn't want them around, so they prefer to live on the street. So I can tell you that I've talked to at least 12 people on this block. And on this block, it appeared, I was going to try to help them with housing. I was going to help them with social services because we had a whole line of social services that were available. They did not wish to even talk about them. Mm-hmm. They said all they wanted was an address. And the address helped them to get their Social Security check or whatever the check they're receiving, whatever the subsidy that they're receiving. Okay. And I think that was kind of tough. So not, like you said, just because you don't have a house and you're not necessarily homeless. And some people do not wish to have a house. Or some people don't wish to have a shelter. They wish to stay right where they are.
Yeah, I was a case manager in another state. Mm-hmm. And I had one gentleman who was homeless, but he also had other mental health issues going on. And he said, he did not want to live around those other spirits. He could hear other people laughing and assume they were laughing at him, even though they were nowhere around him, didn't know him. Mm-hmm. They were just laughing at a distance, and if he saw them or if he heard them, he just assumed they were laughing at him. And so he said to me, I don't want to live around those other spirits, And so for him, being homeless was a little more freeing for him. While at the same time, we don't want to diminish the fact that there are people who are homeless by no choice of their own, and they don't choose to stay homeless. They just are down on their luck, or they find themselves in a position where no one is helping them in the manner they want them to help. See, there are a lot of social services out there, but there are people who are proud, who had their own business, who had their own jobs, and found themselves in this situation where they're homeless, and they don't want to be in the system, as they might call it,
Yes, I think when I interviewed the people of those 12, I think that I found that to be the case too. Exactly. Yeah. I think only one person agreed for me to help them with shelter. The 11 did not want any help. Yeah. All they wanted was an address. They wanted a P.O. box or an address so they can receive something. Yeah. That was simply it. So I think that also what I found was mental illness is real. And we really got to be careful about mental illness. And we shouldn't treat that real light, because mental illness is happening around for everyone. But even there's some homeless people that the mental illness is so strong that, just as you already mentioned, when you talk about those other spirits and you talk about other voices and other things that you hear, sometimes you got to be real careful. You really do.
Oh, yeah. We also have a number of people who are getting out of jail or getting out of prison and have no idea where they're going, especially if they're trying to stay clean or if they're trying to stay out of jail, which means they have to stay away from the people, places, and things that got them in trouble in the first place.
But I'm concerned. I'm concerned because we also, even in our ministries, we have a population, we call it the pipeline to prison, where they, in third grade, they see about their education and then they start building jails. But the person that goes to jail, that person is released back where they were picked up from. And they're giving them a very limited amount of funds, and then they say, survive.
And in some cases, no funds at all, except what you came to jail with.
True.
And that's why, when I'm teaching my classes in the jails, I'm telling them, why would you choose to come sit up in here for free?
Right.
Rather than choosing to do something different so you don't end up sitting in jail for free.
For free.
If they were going to pay you, okay, or even give you half of what is costing them to have you up in this jail, then there would be some possibilities beyond the jail.
Yes.
But I had a young lady who was about to get out, and she had no idea where she was going to go. And she was hoping and praying. Now, in this particular case, they were not going to drop her off where they picked her up. They were just going to release her. And she said to me, I hope they don't release me late at night. Because in some cases, they will. And then she has no idea where she's going from the jail to the streets. And then where from there, she has no idea. And so when I gave her a booklet of resources, shelters and other places she could go to, this young lady just stood there in tears from simply a booklet of shelters and information. And so one thing we need to do is recognize that everybody is different, and whatever puts people in the conditions that they are in, it's not for us to judge them, but rather to assist and recognize this is the first time in many, many years that we have family members that are living together because they can't afford to live separately. We have friends and other people who have chosen to multiply the number of people who live in one household because they cannot afford to live individually. And we have to start being creative and also respectful of being in a house or a home with people that we aren't used to living with.
Now, this is true.
Yeah.
I agree totally.
Yeah.
We do have to be sensitive. We really have to be very sensitive because if we're not, that's when, I feel the people can retaliate, and I think that and just like that other person you said about those other spirits, you don't know what's going on in their heads. You don't know, what these other voices are speaking to them about. So yeah, I think it's something that with this national problem that we have, I really think it should be addressed. I think we really need to address this because it's everywhere. It's not only in one city. It's everywhere.
Now, I was in Beijing, China a few years ago, okay? Now, granted, the Olympics was in Beijing a few years prior to my going, but I could walk around this city with 44 million people in that city with unlimited speed as far as traffic and stuff, but you didn't find any paper on the ground, and you didn't find people just sleeping on the ground. You didn't find tent cities within the city, okay, because of homelessness.
Right.
Now, granted, I know there's got to be homelessness with that many people living in one city, let alone in the larger areas outside of the city. I know it exists, but for me to be there and not see it at all was just mind-boggling to me. And so it made me wonder, how is it that we could have so many veterans come home and end up homeless? how is it we can have so many people getting out of jail and end up homeless? How is it we could have so many family members who are homeless and we not be concerned?
I'm concerned with the foster care too, because after a certain amount of years that they are no longer eligible for foster care, they're also on the streets.
Yes.
And I'm really concerned about that as well.
Yes.
Well, you know, it's interesting. When I went to Bali, I didn't see any homeless. I didn't see, and if there were, they sure were hiding them, because in Bali it was just people everywhere,
Yeah.
and it just seems like they were elders that were working. I mean, they were working. They had to look 80 years old. They're still working, and and they were singing while they worked. I mean, it really appeared that it was a real peaceful place, and I didn't see homelessness out there.
Wow.
And I was surprised. So, and unless maybe they keep it from the tourist areas, or maybe they keep it. We went all the way in. I did not see it. I didn't see it.
Yeah.
I thought it was really surprising. But we do have an epidemic here, and we got to figure out how to handle it.
Yeah. Well, I remember a story a young lady told me who wanted to be helpful. And so what she would do was go around to some of the homeless communities, or communities that house or that had homeless people living in tents. And she would go around and hand out blankets and coats and a variety of things to help people keep warm. And she said this one lady looked at her and said, "I don't need a blanket." She said, "I need a job." And she said, that touched her so deeply. She said, I need to be doing something different.
In
And so
addition to the blankets.
Yes. So what she did, she went back and she started a program where she would go around and hire people to work on coats and blankets and things, so that they would be seamstresses and
That's excellent. What a wonderful idea.
Yeah, and so that they would give out these things, but she hired the people who would be utilizing some of those blankets in order to teach them a skill.
Yes,
Yeah.
you heard that old saying that you have to give a man a fish. What is it?
If you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. You teach him how to fish, he eats for a lifetime.
That's it. That's it. So we just have to teach a skill. And I just think that even for myself, I mean, I started in the real estate business when I was very young and a teenager. And I think that that is the skill I stayed with. So like anything else, you find something that you like, you know, you create a skill, and, you know, but I find too, some people really don't want to work. Some people really rather just sit all day and not work. But that doesn't mean that's the community, the population of the homelessness.
Exactly.
And that one was a fine example.
Exactly, because this young lady had been giving out blankets and coats and things
And never
to
had
a
that
variety of people. But this one started her to thinking about other ways in which she could also help. And so I wanted to speak about the number of people who are immigrants who come here for milk and butter, and hoping that one day they would be able to get rich in America. And they find themselves here on the street because they have not connected to the community from whence they came, you know, their country people. They haven't connected yet to other people. But what's interesting is that here in this land of the rich, milk and honey, you'll find more people who are from here who are homeless than people who are coming from elsewhere who remain homeless. They might be homeless for that time that they get to town and transitioning, but soon as they find somebody from Mali or from Ghana or from Nigeria and find those communities, then the community comes together to help.
I think that's a fine example because, you know, even with the churches, I know they have a lot of different ministries. I know the church I'm familiar with, and we have 82 ministries, and they go the gamut of how they can help between housing and PG&E and just things that they could help with. So I think that that's really important. Also, what I really found to be very interesting is that if anybody has gone to school, and if their mom or their dad or their sister or their brother or themselves, wherever they've gone to college and they hooked up with a fraternity or a sorority, those really are doing really a wonderful job to help those people that they know to, you know, all they have to do is find them in that community and they'll help them.
And there was a time when that's what we did. Remember when we were younger growing up, it was common for us to have our homes opened up to folks because Black folks couldn't go to the hotels or couldn't go to stay places we have access to now.
Yes, that's right.
But even though we have access, doesn't mean we have the money to go and stay places now.
This is true. This is absolutely true.
So we're not naive. We're not saying, you know, open your doors, let them come in. You have to be vigilant in knowing whether or not this is somebody safe to allow into your home, while at the same time, we have to also come together as a community and look at ways in which we can support our churches, support our community organizations, and support the people who are out there doing things to help the homeless.
I agree.
And so we may not want to start our own organization, but find an organization that's already out there. You may not want to be the one that goes to work at a nonprofit, but there are nonprofits that's going out and giving hot coffee to people, giving sandwiches to people, giving blankets and other
On my
things.
way here, Tent City, there were 3 cars lined up. And in the cars, their little hatchbacks, you know, the SUVs were open in the back, and they had food and they had all kinds of stuff. And I think that's where we need to get back to.
Yes.
You know, where we pulling our resources together and really trying to help where we can, whether it is for housing or whether it's for food or it's whether for warmth. This is where we should be, and we should really actively try to come up with ideas to do that.
Yep. And then also, don't hesitate to talk to folks.
Yes.
You're out there handing them coffee, but you're scared to talk to them. Okay?
Yes, that's true.
And so, take the time to talk to somebody, because that one person you talk to might very well be that person that is interested in going to work, that's interested in getting off the street,
Yes.
and just need you to direct them to a place where they could get further help.
That's right.
Okay.
Because I believe they all want help. It's just what is it that they need?
Exactly.
You know, we have to identify the need.
There you
and
go.
care enough to really want to know.
There you go.
And to then put feet with your prayers. Just go out and do it. And if you can't do it, find somebody else that will. You know, find someone else that's willing to help with this journey, because this is a journey that's not going to leave us. This is something that, even with the economy being the way it is right now, I'm finding with jobs and housing, it's just difficult right now. And even though we do have a national problem of homelessness, I still believe that there's enough people in America that do have resources. Those people, in a small percentage, can come out and help those people that really need help.
We also have a number of people who got so much stuff in their homes. If they were just to share some of that, and if you don't want to share it, sell it.
Hoarding is real. You know, people just feel like so much that they hold on so tight that they feel like, and then you wonder, you have to ask them, now, why are you holding on to it? They say, I don't know. Why are you paying for storages for years and years and years? Why? I don't know. Well, some of the stuff was my grandmother's or my aunt's or my family members that, you know, it's very sentimental to me. But, you know, I'm sure your aunt and your grandmother and anybody else would want to help somebody other than you two. I really believe that you really have to soul search, because we have enough hoarders where, yes, that's why you can sell things on the at the flea market. That's why you can sell things all over. It's because there are people that have so much stuff. And we talked about that, just letting go, letting go of those items so you can help somebody.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that stuff is real. That stuff that's inside of our minds and inside of our spirits that's holding us down. Sometimes if you open up and help somebody else, it allows you to feel free. It allows you to wake up and feel lighter.
Yes, I agree.
And so letting go, donating, giving stuff to other people, okay, if they want it, and also listening to somebody.
Yes.
And being open to sharing ideas and directions and connecting folks to other people.
It's the way it's done. That's the way it should be.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I've had a lady I've known for many, many, many years, 30 years, and she started cleaning her garage out. And then before you know it, they rushed her to the hospital. And when they rushed her to the hospital, the doctor asked, what are you doing differently that you've never done before? She said, clean out my garage. And she said, it's been very stressful. She said, because these are things I've been holding on to a long time, and now I'm getting rid of it. That's all it was anxiety. It was anxiety.
Wow.
And so we realize that it's very tough because we do hold on. But we know there's somebody out there that can really use these items. I mean, it's inevitable that as long as you hold on to them, you know, I've heard so many times that there's houses do not go behind the hearse, and the stuff doesn't go behind the hearse. And what are you going to do with it? So we really should think about how we could help the homelessness with some of these items, even if we have it to sell. You know, we could sell the items and say, okay, we'll put that money aside to help the homelessness issue.
Well, this has been incredible. This whole show has been just incredible. All we wanted to do was share ideas. And once again, it's time to shut it down. I want to thank you for being with us, talking about homelessness, and do what you can do. Come up with ideas in which you can help somebody. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. It's always nice.